Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is Redberry Rio here, and today we're going to be doing our leadership discussion. Yay, it's our first one. So I wanted to kick it off with something really exciting and something very interesting within the second chapter of the Learn to Lead series. If you had missed my previous videos on the Learn to Lead books, then feel free to look at chapter 1 videos, which I will link up here in the iCard and also in the description down below. Now, before we get into this video, just a quick disclaimer, some of these videos are going to be on specific topics within chapters that I think are really important, so this one especially is about decision-making and ethical decision-making steps, or at least the 7 different steps to ethical decision-making, so you guys have an opportunity to learn a little bit more about that one because I think it's really important, and it's a large section of chapter 2. There will be other videos where it summarizes the entire chapter, like I'm planning on doing a chapter 2 one specifically, coming up soon, but for this week we're just talking about the ethical decision-making process and what we need to do to avoid the ethical trap and what the ethical trap is. There are 7 different steps within the ethical decision-making process. Alright, so I have a little memory device that I use in order to memorize these steps. I say to definitely face brains or value these acts. Really. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but it's the way that I remember it, and you can come up with your own mnemonics or memory devices in order to memorize these steps, because you'll probably be tested on it if you're taking Learn to Lead books, and if you're trying to figure out the right steps in order to make a very ethical decision at some point in your life, then it's good to review these steps. Alright, so the first step, we said define, right? So you need to stop and define the problem. You need to know what the problem is before you solve it. Because you don't want to fix something that isn't broken, right? So if there is an issue there, then figure out where that issue is. Find the source of the problem. And then I said face was my second part of my mnemonic, which is really weird, but we're getting the facts. Gather as much information about the decision and what will happen. So there's facts versus opinions. Do you know what the difference is between facts and opinions? You can take a moment to pause the video, or I could just continue and say that an opinion is someone's own personal thought. It doesn't necessarily have to be found in logic. So my opinion could be that The Legend of Zelda is the best game franchise out there. We can look at the analytics of how many people have purchased specific Legend of Zelda games in comparison to other franchises, and you may not know, but I know that the Ocarina of Time is the most highly rated video game on a specific review site, right? So I could use that data to back up my claim and saying, this fact exists, and that is why I have this opinion. And also I just think it's a great franchise. But anyway, so you want to make sure you get the facts first. See, I'm looking at my book and I have highlights in it from like 8 years ago because I've been in that long. But you want to make sure you know where it's stemming from by getting the facts. Now, I said brain, right? Define face brain. Brainstorm. So there are different ways to creatively think, which we will discuss later on. But when you are coming up with solutions, you want to come up with a list of different things. And you don't want to say, no, that wouldn't be good enough. Just clear your mind and kind of brainstorm and generate a long list of different ideas that could potentially resolve the problem that you've got, or the decision that you have to make. Okay, a good example would be, let's say that I am doing some crafts and I wanted to make some ornaments, but I don't know what I would need. And I don't really know exactly what I want to make. So I might brainstorm a list of different things, and I might say, oh, I want to make a snowflake thing, because I have these pieces of paper and a pair of scissors. Or I could make a globe thing, because I've got these weird clear plastic globes just sitting in my basement, and I could give them to my friends, right? So you want to make sure you come up with a large list of ideas and different options that you can choose from. To define what the problem is, we've got to get the facts. Then we've got to brainstorm. Now what's the next thing? We've got to weigh our options. Now, if you look at the Learn to Lead thing, it says you need to know who the stakeholders are. Now, what does it mean when it says stakeholders? Stakeholders are basically people who will be impacted by the decision you are making. So, me, if I decide that I want to go shopping and take the car out shopping, then I might think of the different stakeholders that might be involved with that. So, for example, if I take the car to go shopping, then one of my family members may not be able to use it, and they have a business meeting in the afternoon, right? So before I make that decision, I might ask them and say, hey, I'm planning on doing this. Would it be okay if I do this? And keeping those stakeholders in mind. Now, the next thing, after weighing your options, you need to know what your values are. In my Learn to Lead Chapter 1 videos, both of them, or all three of them, I guess, I discuss the core values and what you internalize and what you believe. But if one of your solutions to passing a test is to cheat off of someone else, it is an option, and you did come up with it. But if you think about, oh, I have integrity, and I want to do the best I can do and show my true performance and my excellence in being able to study and retain material, then that isn't really something that you would want to do if you're making that ethical decision. After you consider your values and what is most important to you, then you need to decide and act. And you do it. So you're like, I'm going to go with this option. This is what I'm going to do. And then you do it. That's it. That's it. And then after that, the final step is to reevaluate. And you look back and you say, is this the right decision that we went with? Good leaders reevaluate their solutions. Now, there's also a certain amount of flexibility when you make decisions normally. So you can kind of shift the direction of whatever you're doing, right? Your actions aren't concrete and you're not stuck forever, typically, on a normal scenario. So that's just something to keep in mind. Look back at the entire thing, and even while you're doing it, just kind of reflect to see, is this the right course of action, or are there things that I can do personally to tailor my decision to kind of get me back onto the track that I want to be on. Now, there's this thing called the ethical trap. And that's basically where you make an unethical decision, and that leads to another unethical thing, which leads to another unethical thing. And it's almost like a slippery slope, which is a logical fallacy, which we will discuss in a later video, I promise. Ethical traps, it's where you're stuck in a cycle of making unethical decisions. So let's take an example from the Learn to Lead book. Here it discusses Nixon and the Watergate scandal. Now, you may not know all of the details about the Watergate scandal, but basically one decision that wasn't ethical led to another, which led to another, and now the word Watergate is just associated with scandal in general. Alright, so you want to make sure that you do your best to make ethical decisions by following that ethical decision-making process, which I will show here. La la la! And as you follow it, then you'll be able to make good ethical decisions as a leader. Not only for yourself, but for others. Alright, so just to summarize, we've got to define what the problem is. We need to gather the facts. We gotta brainstorm. We weigh our options. We consider our values. And then we decide and act and then reevaluate. Thank you guys so much for watching my quick spiel on Learn to Lead and ethical decision making and the ethical trap. So do your best to do the right thing and follow your core values and the core values of organizations that you are a part of, including hopefully Civil Air Patrol. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope to hear from you in the comments below. That is all, folks. Until next time. Toodles. Yay! We did it! Boom!